Ahoy! Anchored with this, that. Setting sail with the captains of the creator economy. In this episode, we have Charlotte Stavrou, CEO and founder of SevenSix agency, and Shakira Akinjobi, Director of Influencer Marketing for UK and EMEA at Burson. The topic is overcoming today's challenges, empowering creators for the future, and finding the path to genuine inclusion. What to expect from this episode? This episode dives into the challenges creators face in a booming but crowded industry, with increasing competition, undeniable pay gaps, and diversity and inclusion often reduced to buzzwords. How can we secure a better future for the creator economy? What's your name, your job title, and company? And please, if you could, summarize what your role looks like.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Stavrou, and I am the founder of SevenSix agency. We're an influencer marketing agency based in London, and we focus on inclusive marketing. And my job role, it changes every single day. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup agency, so it's a lot of organisation, a lot of inputting processes, building up the team. I'm very hands-on as a boss and as a marketer in general, so I still do quite a lot of client work. But yeah, every day is a different kettle of fish, so it's an exciting time in my life, I'd say.
Nice. Hi everyone, I'm Shakira Akinjobi, Head of Influencer Marketing UK and EMEA at Burson. We are a PR global comms firm working across consumer brands, healthcare and corporate and public affairs. As mentioned, there's 3 very different sectors and brands there, so my role looks very different depending on the client. So anything from influencer strategy, playbook, toolkits, talent management at times, account management, project management. So yeah, no 2 days are exactly the same.
I think that's influencer marketing in general, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's so many different things.
Definitely.
What is your assessment of the current state of the creator economy?
Sure. So, loaded question. I think it's an interesting space. I think it's saturated, if I want to be frank. I think everyone and their dog is literally a creator. So I think there are so many different voices, and I think the challenge is, because there are so many voices, being able to identify the right voices for the right campaigns, for the right projects, to ensure there's value for both the creator and the brand.
Yeah, I echo that. And I also think on the other side, it's saturated, I'd say oversaturated in the agency space as well. I think there are lots of new agencies and new kind of like service offerings in the influencer world that actually don't need to exist.
Yeah.
And people are constantly trying to tackle problems that I feel like are somewhat irrelevant, and no one's actually really
those questions.
Yeah, no one's asking the right questions and focusing on the issues that are at hand. I think as an industry, we're often called new, and like we're relative to the advertising industry, we are obviously a new industry, but creator marketing has existed in different capacities forever.
Absolutely.
It's an evolution of celebrity marketing, right? Mixed with modelling. So it's a different thing, but it definitely has origins that have been around for a long time. And I think there's often an excuse, it's a new industry, so we can be quite lax, or it's fine that we don't have standardization in payments, and people don't get paid on time and paid poorly, and there's like the biggest issue is money.
Yeah.
We just don't have the right structure and processes that are set up as an industry, and I think that's never a priority for whenever we hear like conversations, panel talks. It's never actually the issue that gets brought up.
Operations behind it all. We talk so much about the creators, but it's a business, right?
Yeah.
And if I think of my career, I started off in affiliate marketing, and if you think about influencer marketing now, there's essence of affiliate marketing, right? How we pay commissions on sales and things like that. So to your point, it's not a new space, it's evolved.
Yeah.
And as digital marketing has evolved from where it used to be one ad, and now we're looking at programmatic, but we can work really quickly in that space and ensure that we know our measurements, we're paying our suppliers on time, come up with different formats. As influencer marketing is also evolving, we as marketeers and clients and brands and agencies, all of us really, we need to be able to evolve and work in the same way. But I think part of the challenge is because it's people-based. Whereas so many other mediums like TV, it's not necessarily a person. You're thinking of an organisation.
Yeah.
Print, it's the paper, right, or digital press or whatever. So I think a big part of it is because it's human relationship connections. People almost don't treat it or value it in the same way as they do other mediums. So
yes, I also to put a bit more of a downer on it. I think it's also quite a women-focused industry, which 77% of creators are women, which makes it, I think, seem quite frivolous. If we then flip that to looking at the kind of census of who owns agencies, who are high up in brand world, the CMOs, the C-suite, it's the majority of men. So I just feel like that imbalance actually probably causes a lot of the tension that we have and the issues that we have, because the industry, if we hear the advertising people talk about influencer marketing behind closed doors, there's like a sense of frivolity around it. It's not like, it doesn't feel serious. Yeah. And it very much is a serious part of the industry.
It's so inaccurate,
makes so much money.
So much money. There's so much value from both brands, consumers, creators, that it needs to hold the same credibility. Yeah. And so it's a shame, but hopefully it will change as time continues.
Yeah.
How are you and your company pushing influencers forward?
So I started SevenSix because I wanted to tackle an issue. So I'd worked in-house for all of my career, from the age of 21 to 29 when I started SevenSix, and I understood influencer marketing really well because from the age of 20 I had a blog, a YouTube channel, and I was an influencer myself. But then from 21 I was working, so I had this understanding of influencer marketing in a kind of 360 approach. I was a creator, I knew creators, but then I was also working with them and paying them. So I just kind of understand it maybe I think in a different way to a lot of people. And because I live and breathe it, I was confused when I went freelance in 2018 basically, and I was confused to how other businesses did creator marketing, because it was still quite 2018, it was still quite fresh in the sense of how we were paying creators and what was deemed as valuable content, and TikTok wasn't even a thing at that time, and it was very, very different. And I was freelance, I was working with different agencies and different companies and lots of different creators, and I just realised there were just no people of colour that were being paid. When I say no, there were very few, and some of them were managed and they had big management because of whatever, but the theme was they were either racially ambiguous or
biracial,
lighter skin tone. And then there was like a few people like Trisha Bright that kind of pushed through, which is amazing to see, but one of the only few. Right? So in the UK, in the US it's a different story, but in the UK definitely. And I knew so many incredible creators that were doing amazing things, had massive audiences, but they just weren't being seen by brands because the brands didn't look like us. The people who were working in the marketing departments and the agencies, they weren't looking like us. There's a massive shift now, which is amazing because there's had to be, but still it's not perfect. So I wanted to create an agency that helped showcase these creators that existed, that had these ready, ripe audiences to be sold to. Who were ready to be engaged with for whatever. And influence marketing, we could be talking about working with a consumer brand, we could be talking about working with a charity. It doesn't have to be like you're selling to someone something that they don't necessarily need, but I wanted to push these creators, so that's something that I still stand by today. And everything that we do, the talent that we manage, the campaigns that we work with on the brand side, because we do talent management and influencer marketing campaigns, all the focus is always super inclusive marketing, working with creators to push their voices to the front so that the underrepresented talent get heard. But then also with the campaigns that we put on, showing what a inclusive campaign looks like, because diversity inclusion is a buzzword, and it's changed how diversity looks over the years, and now there's a specific type of diversity that is just ticking the box and is working, and it's not good enough. But when you see a campaign that we do, we focus on like actual data around the census, the ONS statistics, that understanding the consumers that not only that the brands have but that they want to have, and like the opportunity there. And that's kind of like my drum that I'm hitting. It's like, this could be so much better, but we need to understand what's wrong with it to make it better. And I don't always want to be the Debbie Downer. I'm always throwing out the stats from the reports that we do.
No, it's so helpful.
But it's important, and people learn things that they've never had to think about before. And so many people are surprised, there's huge pay gaps in the influencer space between creators of colour and white creators. And there's also pay gaps within age and people who have disabilities. There's pay gaps everywhere. But I think what's interesting is there's pay gaps in every single industry. And people are so surprised that the influencer space has pay gaps still. But of course, because we are an industry with
pay gaps,
we're fantastic. So yeah, that's all I basically talk about, is just pay creators properly, pay them on time, and understand that your campaigns could probably be better, and there's data to back that up.
Nice. How do I follow that? So I think being part of a global machine, I think it's really interesting. I look after the UK market and the EMEA market, and I think one thing is the UK is far more advanced than most of our European counterparts. We say that influencer marketing is fairly new, but a lot of these markets look to us in the US to kind of set that tone and that standard.
Yeah.
So I think, especially in my role, to your point earlier about having people of colour, women in this industry, in the global comm space, there are very few. So I think when I work on new business, when I work on pitches, the value I demonstrate is your influence. Not everyone has a power and the potential to influence, right? What is the message that we're sending? And I think when we think of influential communications, we tend to think of consumer marketing, but it's so much more than that, especially within the healthcare space. And if you think of birth rates amongst Black women and how they are, I guess, at a disadvantage in the healthcare space, maybe because of lack of education, just how it's set up, having voices that are credible to speak to that, whether it's doctors, midwives, is so important. So I guess within my role, it's about finding those different voices, because a lot of these groups, it's almost as if they're not your audience that you're trying to speak to, but they very much are. Like, I don't have the stats, but the buying power of like the Black and brown people is crazy, right? And when we think of, like, again, within the healthcare space, Black people have babies, right? So it's just like, why are we not speaking to those audiences? It's so important that we do. So I think for me, the great thing about working for a global communications firm is that I like to say, the power to be able to influence those conversations, right? Because I can say to the brand, have you thought about X? Have you thought about Y? And I think most of these things come from a lived experience. So I don't think people are intentionally trying to ignore another group. I just think it's not something that they think about.
Yeah.
So I am a woman, I am a Black woman, so it's something that I'm always thinking about, not because I'm trying to drum the beat for diversity and inclusion, but I just am.
It's your lived experience.
That's my lived experience, so that way I can bring that to the table.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I ignore other voices or other groups, but it's just ensuring that as many groups that are relevant to the topic, to the subject, are included in that conversation.
Yeah.
So I think it's great, and I think it's fantastic. Like you and I connected at an event a few years ago. And I think it's fantastic that these small boutique agencies, but like you said, competition is high.
Yeah.
So I think when you have global firms like Burson and others, part of WPP Network, etc., we work with a lot of these well-known brands globally. So having myself and being able to partner with the likes of you to ensure those talents are being pulled through is so helpful.
It's
because
so important.
It's so important.
It's beyond helpful.
And it's, and I think you've seen the value. Like, I look at the Wimbledon campaign that we ran last year. First of all, it was their first influencer marketing campaign, which you think, whoa, is it the first time? But again, to the point about seeing the value in influencer marketing, they're like, oh, we're a brand that we sell ourselves. But they are absolutely a heritage brand with years experience, but they were not pushing their actual gains. It was their retail collection, which is completely new that people don't know. And it's not just merchandise, it's actually things that you wear all year round, from the bomber jackets to the shirts, skirts, dresses. So being able to work with influencers to kind of say, yes, we know the tournament is there, but we're talking about our collection, and showing who's your audience, right? It's not just the 30 to 45-year-old white women, but actually Black men, Asian men, queer people, like everyone wears your items, so ensuring that the campaign is representative of that, and that's what it was. And I think if we look at the people that we worked with on that campaign, they were from different backgrounds, and it was able to resonate. And it's anecdotally, a lot of friends thought, wow, I saw so much Wimbledon content last year. Like even hear it, because I don't really share what I do outside in terms of I'm working on this campaign at the moment, have a look out for it. But to hear that feedback, I know like, great, I'm doing a good job, because they may have not seen that campaign if I hadn't put certain people in that campaign, right? So it's the job of global comms firms like Burson to be able to work with these different groups and help our brands deliver great work, because we see the return as well. So
How do you distinguish brands that truly embrace diversity and inclusion from those who just tick boxes?
It's a journey. And I think Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think it has to be intentional, and it has to be, we love this word, authentic, right? Because I also do have a challenge with the tick box thing. Like, right, I've got a person of colour, I've got a person that's non-binary, I've got a person, so you feel like the United Nations, however you call it. But it doesn't need to be that. It's about understanding your product, the audience that's buying it, the reason why they are, and then slowly making those changes. And I think brands that do it well, like, I don't work with them, but so I can happily say this, but Nike, I think they cater to so many communities and demographics in an authentic way. Like, if you think about Muslim women when it comes to sports and wanting to feel included, there's so many reasons why they don't necessarily feel like they're included. But what Nike has done is authentically, they create modest clothing wear, right? So that way they can feel empowered and confident wearing it. And it doesn't feel like a tick box exercise, but actually it's like, yes, my faith is important to me, but so is still working out. I'm feeling comfortable whilst working out. I don't want to wear a crop top and shorts, right? I want to feel covered, and I think they do that really well. So I think it's a journey, but they've had to, I think they've been able to get to that point now because they've understood who their audience are. They've taken the time to look at actually what are the barriers, what are the challenges. Okay, who can we speak to? How do we speak to them? And I hope, like I said, I don't work for the brand, so I hope there are the right people in the room also helping those conversations. So I just say it is a rock and a hard place, and it takes time. So it's just important as agents as well as consultants to advise, to be on that journey. And it's not a one-time thing. Okay, I've done it now, I don't need to do it again. What have you learned from the last campaign? How can you evolve it? What is the data telling you? What's your audience insights telling you? What's the measurement studies telling you? And then using that to iterate.
Measurements. When we first met, she was like, okay, so data. I was like, you were my kind of person.
Honestly, so that's fine.
I think I echo that. I feel like it's the difference between diversity and inclusion, and I think these two words often get pushed together as one thing. But diversity is the tick boxing. So you have, you've got your, certain skin tone, you've got whatever demographic it is, you're tick boxing, you're making that list. And I don't think that's an issue. I think that's actually quite important if you don't naturally have the ability to think in that way. So for a lot of people, I actually mentioned this the other day to someone. I personally believe that people of colour and people from minority groups generally make, I want to say better marketers, but really good marketers, because I'm going to speak specifically for the UK, because we are a majority, let's speak on people of colour as an example. So we're a country of a majority of white people. So if you're a person of colour, you have to navigate that space on a daily basis and be able to be yourself, but also become a chameleon and adapt in a way that you have a full understanding of the mainstream of understanding what's going on there, but then also within your specific community. Whereas as a white person or a straight person or a able-bodied person, it's like whatever the list is, you don't have to navigate anything else apart from, there may be the intersection of, you're a white woman, but that is one thing, and there's still like a level of privilege there. So I think it's really important to note that how you navigate the world is very different, and you don't have to navigate outside of anything else apart from your identity. Whereas as a person of colour, you have to straddle so many different things. As a person with maybe an invisible disability, you have to navigate things in a different way. And I think that's why I see so many marketers that do such a good job, because we're able to speak to so many different audiences from that lived experience. I can speak to a white audience without being white. I am mixed race, so I do have a white family, so that also gives me a different in. But I imagine you could speak to a white audience without actually being white.
And I think it's because it's the majority, right?
Yeah.
We're like you said, we're in the UK. That's our lived experience. If I think of, making it personal now, like my school experience, right? I went to a predominantly white school, a predominantly white university. I lived in a predominantly white area. So these things are just how you have to navigate life. And I think it actually takes a certain level of confidence to be able to navigate it in your authentic self.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, right? Because it's not for me to dictate what black means or what, having a disability means and then not feeling authentic. So whatever authenticity means to you. But I think to your point, because you have to shapeshift, it becomes, I think one of the questions is what's your superhero? Being able to shapeshift, right?
Yeah.
Because you just have to naturally. And it's not, I personally don't think, okay, right, today I'm gonna think like a white male 45-year-old man. No, I just,
But you could understand, you could understand
so
it.
when briefs come in, like, yep, okay, if that's the audience, I can be like, okay, cool, I get it. But then if there is an opportunity and we're appropriate, right, have we actually thought about this particular group and how they identify with this product, how this product can be of use to them? And it's being able to shape it, create it with the brand, and then put it out there. So I think
And that's the inclusion side. So having that sense of inclusivity is what takes it to the next level. And I think with clients, that's something you have to try and buy in. And sometimes it's a case of you have to explain it through money. And it's like, if you do this, you will reach these audiences. They have money, they will buy it. And it's as simple as that. And they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that was the case. Okay, cool. And it's, money talks. But sometimes it's like, if you put the effort in with these types of people, you work with these types of creators, you tap into these communities, long term, this is what you will be able to achieve and to, change or whatever, the KPIs are. But it's a case of speaking to that audience, letting that audience come in to the brand. And not everyone wants to do that, and not everyone has, the agency. Like, we work with a lot of agencies that it's the tick boxing. It's like you go to an event and you see, like, okay, they've got these people, there's layers to it, but they haven't thought about dietary requirements or, whatever it might be. There's so many different things that for different people, there's so many different needs. They don't have to think about these things because that's not their thought process. They haven't thought, oh, we're inviting these people, we should make them feel welcome.
Halal food, kosher food, whatever it may be.
Yeah. It could be
just non-pork.
Timings of an event because it's Ramadan and someone's not going to come to your breakfast event. And there's so many different things that people don't think about. But it's that makes the influencers want to work with the brands more, who then their audience see it and they're like, wow, they're working with these people. They must be good because they wouldn't work with them otherwise. So there's like layers to that, but it's that diversity and inclusion kind of mismatch of, the tick boxing's cool. Like, I always say to people, tick a box if you need to. Like, I don't actually have an issue with tick boxing, but it's that follow-up. It's like you have to be able to tick those boxes and then also go a little bit deeper. And having that buy-in from the brand, which is circling back to the original question, having the buy-in from the brand is them wanting to do that second part. That's the hardest bit, but if you can be persuasive in the way that they need to understand, and everyone has different needs, every business has different needs, so as long as you can back up what you want to do with whatever their needs are and make that match, then I think it's a bit of an easy win, but it takes time to actually know how to do that.
Who is an industry change maker to you in the creator economy?
Someone that I highly respect and have been fortunate enough to hear her speak a few times is Vanessa Kingori.
Oh yeah,
she is an absolute powerhouse. Spent many years at Condé Nast and in Vogue, and recently moved to Google, right? So from fashion to tech, like, it feels like almost polar opposite. But the reason I identify her as a change maker is that I think between what her and Edward did for Vogue was really transformative, right? In terms of the types of people they had on the front cover, the types of content that they put out in the magazines, where most people probably thought, no, that won't sell, right? Because that's not our demographic. But hello, women of colour love fashion and luxury and have purchase power, right? So I think being able to bring, as we mentioned earlier, these different voices to the table and show that to mainstream public, and not, like, again, nothing wrong with D&I specific platforms and publications and things of that nature. But I think we really want to have a shift you really want to be a change maker, you need to bring those private conversations to the mainstream, because everyone needs to be part of the conversation to understand this is where the value comes from, right? Oh, as much as a white counterpart and an Asian counterpart, like both add value and both have something to audiences that they will buy into, and you'll see that return. So I think people, to answer what is a change maker, I think it's people that can, as we mentioned, shapeshift, navigate the private land as well as the public land, and bring the private conversations to the public sphere in a way that feels inclusive and really demonstrate value is my definition of a change maker. And Vanessa does that extremely well, and I'm excited to see what she does at Google.
I actually just saw her earlier, walking down the road, and I'm gonna do a long story here. So I saw her with Kenya King, who would be my change maker, because I think she's incredible. I think how she's been able to bring Black culture into the mainstream and to make it something. The Mobos, she's the founder of the Mobo Awards and the Mobo kind of entity. They do so much, but how the Mobos for so long have been a show, a program, an award ceremony that people of all races, of all whatever, want to get involved with, because it's just really cool and really well done. But something on the back of what you said about D&I focused and mainstream, I actually was at a talk earlier this week, and I just sat there and I just thought, whenever anything's D&I focused, you always have people of colour on the panels, and no one really comes to them, no one cares. And I always sit there, because I was at just having lunch, and then there was a D&I focused talk going on, and there was hardly anyone there, and I was just like, to get people to care, you need to either have a white person who has this, a really good story to be on the panel, or you need to have a celebrity. And they're the only ways that are going to get people to come to D&I focused stuff. And whenever you do go to D&I focused stuff, if they are packed out, they're packed out by other people of colour. So it's really annoying, because we don't need to speak to those people, because they already know.
Right?
So that's just one thing. Having people that are able to go into the mainstream, and I think 7/6, that's what we really try to fight. It's that we talk about inclusive marketing, we do work on niche campaigns that are specific to different communities when we're asked to by our clients, but we try to work on campaigns that are truly inclusive, because that's our aim, to get mainstream influencer marketing to look how we see the world, which is, we're from London. Our London demographics, 44% of the London population are considered BAME, so essentially people of colour or from minority ethnic backgrounds. So that should be what influencer marketing should look like, and it doesn't. So when we do campaigns, we want it to be representative of what, our world, which is, we talk about UK marketing. London is the capital, where mainly, apart from Manchester, all the offices are located. So everyone, all the conversations we're having, unless they're specific regional conversations, that's the chat. So that's really important. And I think a side note is, like, how do we do more of that? And yes, these niche agencies and these niche businesses are really important, because we also have to talk to these communities, but how do we also kind of bring them into that mainstream. And then work with the bigger agencies and the not niche agencies to make sure that they're involved in a way. But because I think that's the only way we really move the dial, right? Because if we keep having these silos, separate conversations, we will always continue to do so. So I think what I try and do within my role is to always look at a campaign and think, who are we speaking to? Bringing those diverse voices into the mainstream, so that way everyone's aware of it, and it's not a separate, for Black History Month, now we'll roll out all of our Black talent. For Ramadan, we'll roll out all of our Asian talent. Actually, there's a lot of white people that are Muslim that practice Islam. Have we ever thought about using them? I know it seems almost contradictory, right, to use a white person for a Ramadan campaign, but I think it again will show that Ramadan is something that's celebrated by so many people, including people that you don't necessarily assume would. And to make it part of the mainstream conversation, let's put someone that maybe doesn't actually wear a hijab, but she still identifies as a Muslim, because it still shows another representation of that. So the more we can bring those pockets and those silos into the mainstream, I think the better our industry will become, the better campaigns will deliver, and I think, let's call it a spade, the better the ROI, right? So it all boils down to that.
How are you making marketing more enjoyable?
I always say to my team, we work together, we're in this office like 7 hours a day together. it's going to be really boring if we don't enjoy our job. I don't want to sit here and do boring work and us all go home and just talk about how boring my day was. So we take our jobs very seriously and we take fun very seriously. So I think when we think about the campaigns that we put on, we're a creator first agency, which a lot of people talk about. I know lots of agencies, Rihanna's in the background smiling. There are lots of agencies that are creator first agencies, and we actually often challenge, we email and challenge. We've never been given a response. We email and challenge what that means, because creator first, but they pay really late, or they send emails that are just completely impersonal and they have no idea what creators are about and whatever. There's like so many things that mean they're not, but we're creative first in the sense that we like to be led by the creators in terms of the creative. So we will have a brief from our client to say, these are the things that we want to hit. This is like the overall campaign. Influencer marketing comes in as a part of a big mix of everything that's going on in their marketing strategy. So we'll say, right, so for this campaign, we'll give your brief to the creator and then they will have to interpret it in their way. Because if you're giving a brief to a creator and you want them to work with you, it needs to be kind of fluid and creative in their way, and not necessarily a script for them because they're not an actor. So how we keep the fun is by working with creators who are really professional and they know what they're doing, or not, and then we guide them. But they have the creative and they have the creative license, so they can do whatever they want as long as they hit, the key messaging and the key points in the brief, so that it's fun. And that's how we're keeping it fun, because I think the problem with creator marketing is that there's like a lot going on at the moment. There's like UGC content, which just talking about makes me sick, because that literally doesn't make any sense. There's lots of organic content, which again doesn't make any sense. It's all paid for. But at the end of the day, you're working with a creator to promote your product to their audience in their way that works for them. So it should be fun. It should be a really easy back and forth. You have your brief, you have your whatever you want to hit, you share it with them, you tell them what the end goal that you want from it, and then they should be able to give it to you. It doesn't always work like that, because some creators, I'm really like making it sound glossy, some creators can be quite difficult to work with, but you have to go with them and they learn, and then hopefully it won't be like that forever. But that's how we are making marketing more fun, is by leaning into that and knowing that we work with people. It's not just data, it's not just numbers. These are people, there's money involved, but these are people doing things that they love and being paid to do that. And we should hopefully do things that we love. Like we moan all the time about how crazy this industry is or whatever, but it's so much fun. Like we're on a little yacht in south of France. Like creativity is pretty fun, and it's like leaning into that and just not taking it too seriously, because at the end of the day, no one is going to die. It's famous pictures on the internet. Like, this is all it is, and we have to note that yes, it's a job, but it doesn't have to be so serious. As long as you know what you're doing, like just do it properly and do it with a smile and do it fun.
Oh, so how do we make it fun? I think we have some really sexy clients. So it's not always
great clients.
No, I'm being actually a bit sarky. It's not always sexy because of the types of clients, but we make it sexy to answer that. So I think parts of how we try and make it more enjoyable is when we get a brief from a client, we have something which we call the writer's room. And essentially it's a way to just come up with your ideas, the wackiest ideas, because I work in PR. So for us, it's all about the coverage. So the wackier, the more exciting, the more interesting the story is, the more likely you're going to get that press coverage and that press pickup. So the writer's room is really an opportunity for all levels within the agency to come and share ideas. And we find that it's in the smallest seed that we can then develop. So most recently we had a Shark Ninja pop-up event for the double stacked. I love saying double stacked, which is for their double stack air fryer. So done multi-purpose air fryer where you can just basically cook your whole dinner at the same time, because there's so much room and space in the air fryer. So it's just like, okay, as great as it is, it's an appliance. How do you really make that quite sexy? So the wacky idea that won was, how about, it's called double stack, so how about we create a huge double stack live air fryer like installation. So this is how we make our marketing more fun, right? Because I think the more creative, the more interesting, the varied you can make it, because of course you can write a press release like, oh, it can hold 2 liters of water, you can fine, that's the product details and that's important, but for consumers to care, for press to care, for influencers to care and have something to create fun content around. Being able to fit yourself in an air fryer because it's massive, right? That's fun content that people can create stuff from. So I think we try and make the marketing that we do fun by ensuring that all voices are heard. And I think that's really hard in a global organisation where there are so many different levels and people. But we really welcome that, and it's not just from the creative team, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the strategy team or the data team, because data can also unlock something that can then become creative that we can really piggyback off. And then from my perspective, from influencers, it's like, okay, right, this is the fun insight. Who's really wacky? Who creates content that this brand creative idea would work really well with? So I think it's about thinking outside of the traditional, even though we are in an industry that can be very cut and paste.
Yeah.
So how do you create something that they haven't seen before, bring new voices to the table? Because that's also how you bring new voices to the table, right? Because if you're always doing the same thing, then you're always going to want to use the same creators. But if you are creating a life-size installation of an air fryer, it's probably not your I don't know, Martha Stewart that you want down there. You probably want a creator that probably does jumping jacks or, you know, like does something fun and wacky to go alongside it, but also cooks, so it's still relevant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's coming up with fun ideas and giving everyone a chance to add their voice.
And now, time for a game and a chance to get to know our guests on a bit more of a personal level. It's time for a series of this or that questions.
Right, this or that?
This.
Okay, so what is your favourite recent campaign? So one that you've seen that you didn't create?
Oh, good question. I think the one that's resonated with me really strongly and left a lasting impact was the See I Can campaign in order for World Down Syndrome Day. And I thought the message and the lead talent was just really impactful, and they just showed that actually a disability doesn't have to hinder you, that, you know, whether it's going to school, working in a bar, socializing with friends, dating, it just had so many different touch points that made me rethink. So I thought it was a really impactful, strong campaign.
That got shared so much.
Yeah.
Like on that day, I just saw it on every one of those social media.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. It was fantastic.
Really impactful, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
Charlotte, this or that?
I'm gonna go for, let's go for that. Go
Got that
wild.
one? What is your biggest success?
Ooh, what is my biggest success? This is a really good question. I think, do you know what? I'm going to say our pricing report. So every year we release an influencer pricing report. This year we've just released ours this month. So it's a report that discusses the influencer pay gap and helps influencers and brands and agencies navigate influencer pricing. So on one side, we talk about statistics between influencers being paid in different ways. So white influencers versus people of colour, and we break it down. This year we talk about skin tone and hair texture, which there is literally no data out there that does that. So we've really pushed boundaries, and we are the only people that do a pricing report in this way. There's one other that I've seen in the US that basically says influencers should be paid $100 for, you know, X amount of content if they have 50,000 followers. It's like ridiculous. And this is actually really, really good deep dive into the influencer pay gap and highlighting the problems, but then also giving that solution of this is how much influencers are being paid, because it comes from pricing from talent managers and understanding from talent that have actually been paid this money, not just like picked out of the air. So I think that's my biggest success, because I have so many people come up to me on a daily basis from some of the biggest companies in the world, some of the biggest agencies, and also creators who have said, I use your pricing report to price my campaigns.
I do.
And I use your pricing report to, you know, price my own campaign, and, you know, I got paid, and I didn't know that I had the capacity to get this kind of money in this industry, which is, it's sad to me, because people do get paid that amount. That is these are the going rates. Obviously it depends if you're a charity or whatever, or a smaller business, your rates might be different, but generally the numbers that are in there are the numbers.
I think it's so helpful, especially as working for a global comms firm. We work with so many brands with varying budgets, so I think for us it's always really important to be, when we are saying actually we need more budget, is to say this is the benchmark. And also, in all honesty, when talent come back with interesting prices, I can also say, okay, let's discuss this accurately.
Yeah.
So I think it's, to your point, it's helpful for agencies, it's helpful for clients, it's helpful for creators, and being in that space to say, I'm not just asking for so much money because, you know, like I need it. It's because this is the benchmark, and I think it allows brands to be more accountable, which is really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad it's recorded. I'm going to play this constantly in the office.
Yes.
Okay, right. So I guess this. What's the other one?
Oh, this.
Yeah.
What is your guilty pleasure TV show?
See, I don't have a guilty pleasure TV. I stand by my TV shows. So I basically exclusively watch rom-coms or TV shows that the target audience is like
16-year-olds.
Yeah. So I love Gossip Girl.
I love that.
One Tree Hill. I could watch that 10
All
times
day,
over.
every day.
The OC, Bridgerton, which I guess that is an older audience. Anything, like literally anything that if you think about a 16 to 18-year-old young woman that it's targeted at, I want to. Look, for context, I look a lot younger than I am. I'm 34, so that I'm not the target audience, but I love it. So
Have
no
you
guilt
seen
here.
The Summer I Turned Pretty?
I haven't. It's on my list, on my saved list.
Oh my gosh, 2 seasons, absolutely adore. Let me know after you've seen it if you are Team Connor or Team Jeremiah.
Okay.
That's the key question.
Right, give me a week.
All right, cool.
Okay, and
What
then
have I got?
You've got a that.
A that.
So, this is such a good one. Who is the most famous person on your phone? Or in your phone?
Put me on the spot. Do you know what? I've been fortunate enough to work with loads of talent, globally, UK, across the board. Some, you know, with managers, and then some direct. So, well, I'll just say this: if you are a fan of Blackish, Grownish, old school Hang Time, if anyone remembers that, then the lead character, father of that show, may be in my contacts, and we may be having a few meetings coming up. We'll see.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
And I may be joining one of those meetings just as a fan.
Just come along. I'm like, here's my friend.
She's just going to sit here and be quiet.